Hey, welcome back, everybody. My name is Bill Oliver. This is my channel, Boston Devops Bill. In this episode, we're going to be adding to our provisioning system. This time, we're going to sync our IPs across all of our virtual hosts. So no matter when a host is added or removed or whatever the case may be, we're going to update our individual VM machines in order to record that address, because right now, as it works, they can't talk to each other. So we have two already defined. We have build prod and we have test prod, but neither of them can talk to each other. And we like it when our VM machines can talk to each other because they need to work in unison. So basically what we're going to have them do is write their IP to a file as they're being provisioned. Then that file is going to be read by a script, and in that script is going to update the individual host files on that VM. Now, what triggers the script? Well, we're going to use systemd, and that's what this big block is over here. Systemd has unit files that we're going to define in order to set up a cron-like structure for our script to be called. And to do that, we're going to define a unit file, a timer unit file, and we're going to define a service unit file. Now, if you're not familiar with systemd, that's okay. I'm going to take you through this, and later on, when we get into setting up our Linux distribution, we're going to go all into the unit files of systemd, because we're going to have to define a few in order to bring up the system properly. Okay, so we're going to move ahead. We're going to forge ahead. We have this wonderful architecture here. Again, our VM machines are going to write their IP address to the IP file. When the systemd process wakes up and the timer fires, it's going to call the service module. The service module is going to call a shell script. Our shell script is going to write our host files for us, containing both of and any additional IP addresses. So why don't we go take a look at this? Why don't we see how it actually works and pound some keys? Okay, let's go ahead and because we got a lot of ground to cover. Let's find out what the state of our machines are in. Okay, so Vagrant. Status. And we are all powered off. Okay, so that'll work. Okay, and test prod isn't created. That's okay. So let's go ahead and begin. Okay. Remember, we haven't integrated Git or even defect tracking yet. So what we'll do is we'll just maintain a log of changes. Okay. Added code to sync IP addresses. Actually, not to sync, to write the IP address to a file. To IP file. Okay, so the file name that we're going to use is simply IP file, and this is going to be ipfile.txt. And let's put a comment up here, and let's make this a constant block. Okay, and basically Ruby really doesn't have constants, so they have the convention that if the variable name is in all uppercase and it is assigned to once, then if you change the value of that, the interpreter will balk. So that's the best we can do, but we're still going to call it a constant. Now, one of the things which I'm going to do is remove that comment, okay? We're going to change the way in which shares are defined. And we're changing the way shares are defined because of the security around them, okay? As you saw the last time, anybody could access this share. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use the VirtualBox Manager in order to define our shares. And so I'm going to move this block and move it down here. And we're going to change this directive to define host. Let me see. Actually, all we need is vb.customize. And what vb.customize does is it will send an array of values to the VirtualBox utility, which is Oracle's utility to manage a VM machine by the command line. So the command which we're going to give it, we're going to give it the shared folder, and the shared folder command takes a directive. In this case, it's going to be add, and we're going to give it the ID of the machine that is currently being built, and then we're going to add the name of the share. So it takes a -- name. Now we don't have a name so inside of our JSON file, so we're going to go in and we're going to change that. Okay, so I'm just going to put name here, but know that we're going back into our VM machine.json file in order to change this. What else do we need? I think we need the -- host path. And we need the shared host. Okay. And we're also going to specify the auto mounter. So auto mount. And that should do it. That's how we're going to, that just redefined our share. Okay. Now, one of the things which we have is we're going to, because of the way in which Vagrant files work, and they work basically by building layers of commands all the way up to what they call the final representation of a virtual machine that needs to be provisioned. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an extra command called vb customize. Okay, and in this case, it's also going to be a shared folder. And it's going to look kind of strange because basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the share, before it's defined. How's that? And it will actually be defined. Okay. And this is going to be share name. And I know that looks really weird, and we'll go through it, we'll see it, and you'll look at it and go, huh? Same way I did. But this is kind of a workaround. I don't have a really neat solution just yet to solving this issue. But I found once we bring the box up, we bring it down, we bring it up again, we're going to hit this error. And I'll show you the error. Okay. I'm basically going to comment this out just now because the first time up we should be fine. So let's move up here, and what we want, oh, better yet, no. Let's jump over to VM machine. Okay, and basically let's go in and let's fix our JSON file to match the new, and we want to do dare share. There we go. And host. And what we're doing is we're changing this so that it matches the new invocation that we're going to that we're using now for the share folder. And for that we need to simply define a name and a host, and we want to do this for all the shares. Okay, so I'm going to change this, and if you notice that the host value is now an absolute path, and I'm going to call this folder share. Okay, and we're going to say host is d:/ddd bdb. Okay. This is inside a test prod that we're going to have the same dir share as the share name. And we're also going to take the convention that the first share, or the 0 share, inside of our share array is going to represent the admin share. So we'll always refer to this, or the 0 share, as the admin share. Okay, even though we didn't put it there, maybe we should. Yeah, let's do that. Let's change the name of this from dir share to admin. Okay, and we're just going to change the share name so that somebody looks inside of there and says, oh, okay. We really should change the directory too, but, you know, kind of lazy today. In any case, we have the share name set, and we have its directory. So let's save that, and let's go over here, and now let's add our file in which we're going to write out the host name and IP name into the ip.txt file. And what we're really building is we're just building a host file entry that we're going to take this file, we're going to append to the host files. Okay, so let's begin, and we're going to do something. We're going to start by writing out the file. Okay, so open, and let's say file.join, because what we're doing now is by joining the components, we're going to join a host directory or our shared directory with our IP file. Okay, this way we can have an absolute path of where this file is located We know where it is. It won't be relative, okay? So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the join command, which will basically put together the two components, the directory from our host, from our share host name, and the actual IP file. And the join command is smart enough to know what the proper separator should be to separate the various components. Okay, so let's go ahead with let's add this in. So this is node array entry, and we want, of course, the shared component of our JSON. Now we also want the 0 element. So to address that, we're simply going to put 0 there, and this is standard JSON notation which we're using. The actual syntax of it, well, this is based upon this particular implementation. And we want the host, because the host has our directory name in it. And we also want to join that with our IP file. And our IP file is actually the name of what we're actually creating here. Okay, so, and we're going to append to this file. Okay, so if it doesn't exist, it'll be fine. Okay, for in a Ruby sense. In a Vagrant sense, it's going to cause an error. So we'll need to protect against the file not being created. And we're going to alias this to text file. Okay, and now what we're going to do, we're going to do something very simple. We're simply going to write, using the puts command, we're simply going to write out our value. And this is node array entry, and we want the IP first because that's how the format is inside of the host file. And then we're going to add another node array entry, and we're going to say that this is the node name. So it will look just like a standard host, and unfortunately I screwed that one up. Okay, so there we go, and we can end this, and essentially we're done. Okay, but we need to add a couple more commands to protect against things. For instance, every time we issue a Vagrant command, it goes in and reads this file, and we really only want this particular function to work when we issue the up command. So let's go ahead and guard against that. Okay, for that, JSON, Vagrant doesn't give us an easy way to handle that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Ruby construct argv, and we're going to look at the 0 command, and this is the 0 command inside of argv is actually the first command, or the first parameter being passed to the command, and in this case it will be up. So we want to catch that, because this is the best way to do that. And I'll come down here and I'll close this block here. Okay, and let's go ahead and address that. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if our IP file exists. And we're doing this solely for the Vagrant file because we're using the append command. So normally the append would create the file and we would be fine, but Vagrant wants us to have that file existing. So, and the reason why is I believe it's because they want to status it, okay? So let's do file exists. Whoop. And this command will test to see if this file exists. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our file join statement, and we're just going to plop it right there. And so if this file exists, what we want, whoops, correction, if this file does not exist, so let's put an exclamation mark in front of file exists to negate it, then what we want to do is we want to simply create this file. And the easiest way to do that is to use a method from the file utils class, and we're going to and it's called touch. So basically, when we touch this file, that file will be created with 0 contents in it. And we can go ahead and click end, and basically that defines our file. So now we satisfied the Vagrant requirements of having the file exist prior to doing anything with it. So now what we have is we have really one thing left to do. And that thing which we want to do is we want to check to see if this IP was added to the file. And if it wasn't added to the file, then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to add that to the file. Okay, so to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to run an if command, okay, and you know, we've seen if before. So if the file, okay, and we're going to open this file because we want to look inside of it. We want to say, hey, is this IP defined? And we're using the IP name because we know the IP name is unique. We can put any name for the host. It doesn't really matter. It's the IP is what we're really concerned about. So we're simply going to open this file, okay, and then we're going to use a command called grep to look inside the file and search for this particular IP address. And grep takes a pattern between two characters. In this case, the standard convention is forward slashes, and we want to use our array, node array, and we want to specify the IP. So basically, oh, yeah, my goodness, I can't type for losing. Okay, and we'll close that off. And basically what this syntax is, where I'm using the pound sign, the left brace, value, correction, variable, and then right brace, the this allows interpretation or this allows this value to be interpreted correctly. Okay, so in any case, we want to check to see what grep is returning. Okay, and grep returns an array. So that array which gets returned, okay, if it's defined, so if there's, you know, greater than 0, that means that this IP is currently inside the IP file. So the best way we can do that is we can check the attribute size, to see if it's greater than 0. And if it's equal to 0, then what we really want to do is we want to go ahead and define this, we want to write the IP into the file. So let's, and that's all there is to it, okay? So now that we have this done, let's go see how our system works, okay? Is it still working, or did I break it? You know, there's 1,001 things. So the first thing which we're going to do is we're going to run a validate. And it validated successfully. So let's go ahead and see if we can't bring it up. Okay, and let's check the status again. I forget what it was. I think it was powered off. So, because we turned it off. Here we go. So, Vagrant. And let's say up. And give it our host name so that it's just going to run through 1 at this time. And it looks like we have some sort of an error. Exists. Ah. Yes, that is an undefined. Okay. I got a little happy with my case. Okay, so. And that's all that was. That was, you know, simply uppercase instead of lowercase e. So, oh, okay, that's good. Looks like we're coming right up with it. And we have an error. There's an error, okay. Command. Auto mount. Shared folder name already exists. Okay, this was that wonderful error which I was talking about. So let's go ahead and pop that there. I think the last command that failed defined it. So let's go ahead, and that should seed us, so we shouldn't run into this problem again. And what I did to fix it was I simply removed the comment which I said that I place in front. Okay, so what we really need to do is we need to put a comment that says the first pass through the file will cause a through the file will work, but subsequent calls will fail with a shared defined error. Okay. This is a severity 1 defect that needs to be fixed. Okay, we're just not going to fix it right now. But so I'm going to add the tag to do. And I'm going to give it a description of fix share name redefine that crashes the start of the VM. Okay, so let's see what we have on. Okay, as you can see, it came all the way up this time. So let's check our file. Type dir. Whoops. Ah, there we go. We have it in there. Okay, so why don't we bring this down and check to see if it will define it again, because that's one of the things which we want to prevent. We only want one entry per IP, so per unique IP. So let's take a second to bring this down. Now let's bring it back up. And this should succeed in coming up because of that remove command. And we're moving right along. I never quite figured out why it hangs at this point. Other than it's generating a temporary certificate for the SSH. But I just figured that, you know, it would cache it someplace, but apparently it doesn't. So in any case, it's back up. And let's type out that file. And what we're looking for again is we just want to see one entry. And that we do. Okay. So what about our other one, which is test prod? Okay. We can test this real quick. So as we can see, it's actually defining it. It's coming up. Now this might die because the share is, yeah, it did. Okay, so let me come in. And that's why I said that this really has to be fixed, because you can see how annoying it is and impactful. And that's why I defined it as a sev1. So we'll go ahead and we'll resolve that issue. Okay. But in the next lecture, what we're going to do is we're actually going to start defining, or we're going to define all the shell scripts that support the recording of the IP into the host file on the Linux machine. Now, we'll also have to transfer all these files over. So, and, oh, that's right, it got a, okay, so it's doing all this wonderful happy stuff. Okay, I wonder, do I have another? Okay, let's grab another one of these. Decoin. And let's go to let's see, what's dir dirsh here. Oh, looks like we have more in it. Okay, so as the machine is still coming up, we do have both of those IP addresses in there, which is fantastic. Okay, so just to recap, what we did was we went into our Vagrant file. We changed the way that shares folder works. So yes, I created my own problem here. We added a to-do comment so that we can go back and we can fix this. Okay, we list it as a sev1 defect to be fixed, but we're going to keep it moving. Okay, we also defined our mechanism to write the IP file to the IP address to the file. But if the IP is currently in the file, then we don't write anything. But if it's not in the file, we go ahead and we write it. And of course, to satisfy Vagrant, we had to define the file prior to accessing it, in which we did with the touch command. So that file will exist, and Vagrant will be happy. We're happy because it worked the way that we wanted it to. So in the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to work on the Linux side, okay? And we're going to create the timer unit. We're going to create the service unit. We're going to create a script to actually process the file, okay, and add it to our host file. And then we're going to come back to our Vagrant file. And what we have to do within our Vagrant file is we have to transfer all those files up to the VM, because whenever we define a new VM, we want to have the same behavior. Okay, so we'll do that next. Also, hopefully in the next episode. And from there, we'll run a couple of tests and we'll see how it works out. And then we'll move on to the next one, which will be defining the disks. Okay, so more to come. And thank you for coming. And hopefully you hit that subscribe button. Okay, I desperately need, the subscribe button to be, like a basketball on the court, bam, 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 bam. Okay, so if you're having fun, let me know. Look forward to seeing you in the next episode. My name is Bill Oliver, and thank you again. Take care.